They say your life flashes before your eyes when you're about to die. For me, it wasn't a flash. It was a slow, excruciating replay of every mistake I made, every warning I ignored, every red flag I painted white. And I did it all wearing a custom Vera Wang. The sky above Charleston was painfully beautiful that day, the kind of soft blue that makes everything feel cinematic. My veil fluttered in the breeze like a ribbon of hope. Guests clinked champagne flutes on the upper deck of the yacht, unaware, or perhaps willfully ignorant, of the darkness crouching in the corners of my perfect day. I was about to marry Grant Whitmore, heir to the Whitmore Hotel empire. Charming, polished, born with a silver spoon and a golden tongue. Everyone loved him. I did too, until I realized I wasn't the only one. Brielle stood beside me in a rose gold dress that hugged her frame too perfectly for a sister of the bride. My half-sister. Same mother, different father. She'd always been the prettier one, the livelier one, the one who knew how to make people fall in love with her and fall in line behind her, including, apparently, my fiancé. I remember thinking, she looks too happy for someone watching her sister get married, and then I heard it. "I'm sorry, Maddie, you were never supposed to have it all." Her voice just behind me. I turned, and then I fell. There was no scream. No dramatic flailing. Just gravity and betrayal. I remember the sting of the cold Atlantic hitting my back, the weight of the dress pulling me down, the muffled music from above fading as the water swallowed me whole. They didn't even yell for help. They didn't panic. They watched me sink. I tried to fight, to claw my way back up, but panic burns oxygen fast. I could feel my lungs tighten, my limbs grow heavy. And still, one thought clawed at me louder than death itself. They planned this. Grant, Brielle, my own blood and my chosen partner. They had taken my love, my loyalty, my empire, and now they were taking my life. Everything went black. And then, light but not the tunnel kind. Sunlight filtered through familiar blinds, cutting soft lines across my comforter. The scent of honeysuckle drifted in through the open window. Birds chirped. My skin wasn't damp. My lungs weren't aching. I was lying in bed in my old townhouse on Broad Street, the one I sold years ago. I bolted upright. My breath caught as I scanned the room, my books, my worn leather chair, the framed photo of my parents before the divorce. I hadn't seen that photo in years. I threw off the covers, ran to the mirror. My reflection stared back at me, younger, softer, untouched by betrayal. I looked down at my phone, an old model I hadn't used in ages. It blinked to life. April 7, 3 years ago, I stumbled back. My knees buckled against the nightstand, nearly knocking over a glass of water. This couldn't be real, I should be dead. But I wasn't, I was back, not just alive, rewound, reborn. And suddenly, everything clicked, the date, the room, the face in the mirror. I remembered what came next. I remembered every lie they would tell, every trust they would shatter. I remembered how I handed over control of Carter Holdings to Grant without hesitation. How I gave Brielle access to my accounts out of sisterly love. I remembered dying for people who never planned to keep me alive. My hands shook, but not from fear, from clarity, from rage, from purpose. I had a second chance. A chance to rewrite the ending. They thought they buried me. They didn't know I was a seed. This time, I wouldn't be the bride walking blindly into betrayal. This time, I would be the storm they never saw coming. I didn't leave the house for 3 days. I didn't call anyone. I didn't answer texts. I didn't even open the curtains unless I needed light to read the files I had locked away years ago, files I now remembered exactly where I had hidden. Most people would think I was in shock, waking up in the past like this. But I wasn't. I was calculating. Because the version of me that woke up this time, she wasn't some lost little bride-to-be. She was a woman who had died with her eyes wide open and came back with a plan. On the morning of the 4th day, I pulled out an old hard drive from my fireproof safe and booted up my laptop. There they were, financial spreadsheets, email chains, text backups I had once saved just in case. Back then, I didn't know what I was preparing for. But now, it felt like I had been planting landmines in all the right places. And soon, Grant and Brielle would step right into them. First, I needed to act normal, familiar, predictable, so I did what they expected me to do. I called Grant. "Hey babe," he said smoothly, like nothing had ever happened. Like he hadn't murdered me. "I was just thinking about you." "Of course you were." I smiled into the phone the way I used to. "You free tonight? I could use a little wine and takeout therapy." He agreed eagerly. And just like that, step 1 was complete. Re-establish contact. Control the tempo. Let them think they still own the board. But this time, I was the one playing chess. And I wasn't sacrificing another queen. That night, Grant arrived at my door with Thai food and a smug grin. He wore the same leather jacket I once thought looked dangerously handsome. Now it just smelled like ego. I hugged him. I kissed him on the cheek. And when he stepped into my home, I knew I was welcoming a snake back into the garden. But this time, I was the one holding the blade. "You okay?" he asked, concern laced in his voice. "You've been quiet lately." I poured 2 glasses of wine and handed him one, smiling just enough. "Just been thinking about the future," I said softly. "About us, about the company. I don't want to take anything for granted." He looked relieved. "Of course he did. You've got such a good heart, Maddie." "No, I had one. You buried it with my body." I leaned in closer, let him wrap his arm around me. Every inch of me wanted to pull away. But revenge isn't a sprint. It's a slow, surgical operation. And I had learned the art of patience by dying. Later that week, Brielle invited me to brunch. We met at a rooftop cafe downtown, her favorite place to sip overpriced matcha while pretending to care about other people's problems. She looked radiant in white linen, oversized sunglasses perched on her nose, that signature air of faux empathy swirling around her like perfume. "You look tired," she said, cutting into her avocado toast. "Everything okay?" "You pushed me into the Atlantic." "I've just been busy," I replied, sipping my coffee. "I think I'm going to start making some changes, restructuring things." Her fork paused midair. "What kind of changes?" I smiled, tilting my head. "You'll see." The color drained just slightly from her face. "Good." That night, I called Mr. Harrison Blake, my father's old attorney. The man my stepmother forced out when he refused to sign off on Brielle's early access to the trust. He was retired now, living somewhere in Savannah, but his voice hadn't changed, still sharp, still measured. "Madeline Carter," he said when I introduced myself. Now there's a name I didn't expect to hear again. "I need your help," I said. "And this time, I know exactly who I'm protecting myself from." By the end of the week, I had changed my will. Transferred my most liquid assets into a new holding company, placed my townhouse under a private trust, added a silent partner clause to the Carter Holdings documentation, one that would allow me to revoke shared authority without notice if fraud was suspected. The Madeline they knew, she gave away power like it was candy. But the Madeline I had become, she was the power. They say the most dangerous person is the one with nothing left to lose. I disagree. The most dangerous person is the one who remembers everything and pretends not to. For weeks, I played the role of the doting fiancé. I let Grant believe I was slowly melting back into the illusion. I let Brielle think I was second-guessing myself, unsure, vulnerable. They both wanted me distracted, Grant with romance, Brielle with family gossip and flattery. But while they were busy scheming, I was building a fortress. In silence. I started spending more time at the Carter Holdings office again. My old assistant, Leona, was surprised to see me there so often. "You're actually showing up before 9 a.m., she teased. I smiled. "Let's just say I've got new motivation." She didn't know that I had spent every night studying legal strategy and forensic accounting, that I had cross-referenced every deal Grant had ever touched, that I had unearthed questionable wire transfers signed off by me, only I didn't remember signing them. Back then, I chalked it up to stress, delegation, trust. Now I knew better, and I had proof. I had copies of emails between Grant and Brielle discussing redistribution of my assets. I had the time-stamped changes to my digital signature. I had financial trails that led to offshore accounts under shell companies registered in Panama and Nevada. But I wasn't going to the police. Not yet. Because legal justice moves slowly, and I wanted my justice fast and loud. "Hey babe," Grant said one night as we lounged in my living room. "I was thinking, once we're married, it might be easier if everything just runs through one account. Consolidated, cleaner." "Cleaner for who?" I nodded sweetly. "You're right, I've been thinking the same." He looked relieved, greedy, confident, perfect. The next day, I met with Harrison Blake again. This time, in a quiet, wood-paneled office he used for select clients. He wore his age like armor, wise eyes, firm handshake, voice like steel wrapped in velvet. "You're absolutely certain you want to do this?" he asked after reviewing the file I brought him. "I'm not just certain," I said. "I'm ready." And just like that, the chain snapped. Within the week, I restructured all remaining shared assets, freezing access to anything Grant or Brielle had manipulated. The townhouse was no longer in my name. It was now held by a Delaware trust I controlled with a single-use revocable clause. I even moved my engagement ring into a safety deposit box. I wanted it exactly where it belonged. Out of sight, out of sentiment, and under lock and key. Grant showed up that Friday evening with 2 tickets to Mexico and a $1,000 bottle of wine. "To celebrate," he said. I smiled. "What exactly are we celebrating?" He grinned. "Us, the future. I got the new banking documents ready to sign this weekend." I tilted my head. "Oh, did you?" He didn't see it coming. That night, while he showered in my guest bathroom, I placed a small envelope on the marble kitchen counter. Inside, a copy of the trust restructuring, a letter from Harrison Blake, and a post-it note in my handwriting. "You can't steal from someone who already took it all back." Maddie. He left without saying goodbye, and I didn't chase him. 2 days later, I hosted a quiet brunch at my private office, inviting 2 board members from Carter Holdings, an investment banker, and a young woman from a financial abuse support network I had recently contacted. "Not for PR, for purpose." "You've been quiet, Madeline," one of the board members said cautiously. "Is something going on?" I smiled over my mimosa. "Yes, everything is finally going exactly as I planned." They wouldn't understand yet, but they would, very soon, because I wasn't just untangling myself from their web. I was building my own. And this time, I was the spider. There's a strange kind of freedom in being underestimated. People show their real faces when they think you're powerless, and I was counting on that. After cutting Grant out of everything, financially, legally, emotionally, I disappeared from the social scene. No more brunches with socialites. No charity galas. No photo ops in Forbes or Town and Country. I let Brielle think I was spiraling. I let Grant think I was grieving the end of our engagement. But while they were watching for weakness, I was rebuilding in silence. I drove down to Savannah, alone, no driver, no entourage, and walked into a rundown brick building that used to house a bakery. It smelled like flour and forgotten dreams. It was perfect. A week later, I bought it under an anonymous LLC. Within a month, I had secured 3 startup grants, hired a small team of young developers, and launched the quiet beginnings of Lark and Vale, a women-led investment advisory firm. My mission was simple: to help women untangle themselves from financial abuse and legacy traps, just like I had. But that wasn't public. Not yet. To the world, I had become a recluse, a faded heiress licking her wounds. And I let the tabloids say what they wanted. Heiress Carter ghosts Charleston society after broken engagement. Where's Madeline, the socialite who vanished? Fall from grace or master of disguise? The last one made me smile. Closer than they knew. Brielle called one morning, her tone syrupy sweet. "I just wanted to check on you," she cooed. "You've been so distant." I pictured her perfectly manicured nails clutching an oat milk latte, probably scrolling through my Instagram, noticing I hadn't posted in weeks. "I'm fine," I said, "just focusing on myself." "Of course," she said, "you always were the introspective type." What she meant was predictable, passive, the perfect mark, not anymore. "I heard Grant's been having a hard time getting his accounts unlocked," she added, her voice just sharp enough to draw blood. "Oh," I replied, feigning surprise. That's strange. He should probably call his lawyer. A beat of silence, then, anyway, we're doing a little family brunch next week. You should come, clear the air. I knew what she meant. Let us pull you back in before you get too far ahead. But I wasn't coming back. I was pulling away, strategically, irreversibly. At Lark and Vale, I hired women who had once been passed over. A single mom with a finance degree who was working at a coffee shop. A 28-year-old analyst who left Wall Street after a public firing triggered by a male executive's tantrum. A former paralegal who helped build the risk protocol no one listened to. I gave them titles, salaries, equity, and most of all, voice. In private, we built. In silence, we grew. By the third month, we were managing $12 million in discrete portfolios. And still, no one knew it was me behind the curtain, until someone knocked. It was a Wednesday afternoon when a junior reporter from a local Charleston magazine sent an inquiry to my office. Subject line, "Ms. Carter, would you like to tell your side?" Attached was a draft article titled, "Did the Carter heiress lose everything or walk away from it all?" I sat with it for hours. Then I wrote back a single sentence. "I'll speak when I'm ready. Until then, watch what I build, not what I leave behind." 2 days later, Grant's image hit the tabloids. He was being investigated for tax discrepancies and fraud. Someone had tipped the IRS. Not me, officially, but karma has many hands. And mine were clean. As I stood on the rooftop of the Lark and Vale building, wind sweeping through my coat, I looked out over Savannah, my new city, my rebirth. I didn't miss Charleston. I didn't miss the old version of myself. The woman I used to be died in the Atlantic. This one, she was rising. They thought I would never show my face again. They were wrong. The invitation came in a thick ivory envelope with gold foil lettering and a fake smile hidden between the lines. "Grant Whitmore and Madeline Carter request the honor of your presence." I laughed when I saw it. After all the lies, the theft, the murder, because yes, what they did to me was attempted murder, they had the nerve to invite me to their wedding, as if I were some tragic footnote in their twisted love story. I stared at the RSVP card for a long time, then I checked the box next to happily attending. Because I had unfinished business. The ceremony was set at the Whitmore estate, ancestral, pretentious, and soaked in old Southern money. Marble stairs, white columns, manicured perfection hiding rot beneath the surface. I arrived in a sleek black dress, nothing bridal, nothing soft, tailored, sharp like armor. My heels clicked like a countdown. The valet hesitated when he saw me. They all did. I wasn't the same woman who walked into this world naive and wide-eyed. I was the storm they created, and I had finally arrived. Inside, the guests whispered. Some tried to smile. Others avoided my eyes altogether. Grant stood at the altar, looking radiant in his navy tux, laughing with his groomsmen. He didn't see me walk in. Brielle, in the distance, was being fussed over by stylists. Her dress was a pale champagne, a nod to luxury and irony, I suppose. She caught my gaze through the mirror, and for a fraction of a second, her smile faltered. Good. I waited until the officiant cleared his throat and the music softened. That was my cue. I walked straight to the center aisle, heels echoing like a heartbeat. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. I simply opened the manila envelope I had brought with me. Inside, copies of Grant's offshore accounts. Emails between him and Brielle, time-stamped before our engagement, was even public. Surveillance photos I had commissioned. And my favorite, a notarized statement from Harrison Blake, dated and signed, verifying that I had revoked all shared assets and legal power of attorney before they tried to use them. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Grant stepped forward. "Maddie, what the hell are you doing?" I met his eyes. Calm, cold. "Just returning the favor. You killed me once, but I don't die twice." Brielle rushed down the aisle, face twisted in panic. "She's lying. She's insane." I turned to her, lifted the final sheet of paper. A printed transcript of the voice memo she left me the night I died. Her voice echoed through the speakers I had arranged in secret. "You were never supposed to have it all." The crowd turned. Phones came out. Cameras clicked. It was over. Within hours, the wedding was canceled. By morning, it was national news. By that evening, Grant's assets were frozen again. And Brielle was served with legal papers, fraud, embezzlement, conspiracy. I didn't scream. I didn't gloat. I simply got in my car, rolled down the window, and drove away, while the chaos unfolded behind me like the final scene of a movie I had already seen once before. But this time, I was the one who wrote the ending. If they wanted a public life, they were going to get a public reckoning. And as I merged onto the highway, Savannah-bound, wind in my hair, a soft smile spread across my face. Not because I had destroyed them, but because I had finally, fully chosen me. Courtrooms are colder than you expect, not in temperature, though the AC was aggressive, but in silence. The kind of silence that makes your heartbeat feel too loud. The kind of silence that separates truth from performance, and I was done performing. The case was officially titled Carter v. Whitmore and Carter, two names that used to mean family, now co-defendants. The lawsuit included fraudulent misrepresentation, financial abuse, attempted criminal conspiracy, and the big one, intentional infliction of emotional distress. It wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about record, about truth, about setting the world straight, not with gossip, but with evidence. The courtroom was full, press, bloggers, even a few former friends from Charleston who hadn't spoken to me since the scandal broke. Let them come, let them watch. I walked in with my head high, dressed in a clean-cut navy suit, hair pulled back, no jewelry, nothing flashy, nothing emotional, just presence. Grant sat at the defendant's table with a new lawyer, one who clearly didn't know how deep the rot ran. Brielle sat beside him, tense, her makeup flawless but her eyes restless. Good. When the judge entered, everyone stood. I stood taller. My attorney, Mr. Ellis Monroe, a quiet, methodical man who once clerked for a federal judge, was calm, composed, and absolutely ruthless with facts. We are here because Ms. Carter was not only betrayed in her private life, he said during opening statements, but systematically targeted, manipulated, and nearly destroyed by people who used her trust as a weapon. Every word landed like a nail, and then the evidence began. Email threads, financial records, surveillance video, forensic voice analysis of Brielle's voicemail, expert testimony on manipulated signatures, dates that overlapped too perfectly for coincidence. Grant's lawyer tried to deflect. She's exaggerating. There's no physical harm here. That's when Ellis pulled out the coroner's report from my near drowning. Lungs filled with seawater, bruising on the wrists, trauma to the head. The judge's eyes narrowed. Attempted murder has no statute of emotional limitation, Ellis said. You don't need a bullet to call it violence. Then it was my turn to speak. I took the stand, raised my right hand, and swore to tell the truth. I loved them, I said softly. I would have given them everything, and in a way I did. My money, my loyalty, my heart. They took all of it, and then they tried to take my life. I paused, but I came back, and I came back with proof. The courtroom was still. Even the judge leaned forward, and for the first time in 3 years I felt it, power, not given. Not borrowed, but reclaimed. When the verdict came in, I already knew, guilty, on all civil charges, plus a formal referral to the district attorney's office for criminal proceedings. Grant's assets were seized for restitution. Brielle was banned from holding any fiduciary or executive position for 10 years. And me, I was free. Not just from them, but from the version of myself who once needed their approval to feel whole. Outside the courthouse, cameras flashed. Reporters called my name. Ms. Carter, do you feel vindicated? Was this about money or closure? Would you ever forgive them? I turned, met their gaze, and answered calmly. This was never about revenge. This was about truth, and truth deserves a voice. Then I stepped into the car, closed the door, and left them behind. That night, I sat on the balcony of my Savannah apartment. No champagne. No victory party, just peace. For the first time, peace. And in the quiet, I whispered a thank you, not to the people who hurt me, but to the woman who refused to stay broken. To me, they buried me in betrayal. But I rose in clarity. And now I lead, not in vengeance, but in vision. 1 year later, I walked into the Glass House Pavilion in New York City to deliver the keynote at the Women in Wealth Summit. There were over 300 women in the audience: founders, fund managers, survivors, dreamers. Every one of them had either clawed their way through a door that was never meant to open for them, or was still standing outside, waiting for a chance. I used to be that girl, the one who smiled politely, who apologized too much, who handed over the passwords, the keys, the power, because I thought love meant trust and trust meant silence. But that version of me was long gone. I stepped up to the mic in a slate gray suit, crisp white blouse, and heels that didn't hurt. I didn't need a spotlight. The room was already listening. 2 years ago, I was engaged to be married. I was also being robbed, emotionally, financially, and spiritually, by the people I loved most. A murmur moved through the crowd. I lost everything I thought defined me: my family, my reputation, my safety. And then, by some twist of fate, I got the chance to begin again. I paused, letting the words hang. I don't believe in revenge anymore. I believe in rebirth, in rebuilding not just companies but selves. Hands clapped, not loudly, but purposefully. So I built Lark and Veil not for profit, but for impact. A firm run by women for women, especially those recovering from financial abuse, legacy traps, and the generational silence we've been conditioned to endure. Now they were really listening. This isn't about burning it all down. It's about planting something stronger in its place. After the talk, women approached me, some in tears, others with quiet gratitude. You put into words what I never could. I thought I was the only one. I just left him last month. I needed to hear this today. It hit me harder than any courtroom victory ever had. This wasn't just my story, it was ours. Weeks later, I received a letter. Handwritten, no return address. It read, "I don't expect you to forgive me, but I see now, you were always stronger than us." It wasn't signed, but I didn't need a name, I didn't reply. I folded the letter and placed it in a box labeled, "What tried to break me?" Then I locked it and walked away. Now, every morning I wake up in my Savannah brownstone, overlooking the river. There are plants in my windowsill, a coffee mug that reads unbothered, and a calendar that no longer revolves around other people's approval. I still wear the scar on my right wrist, the one I got trying to claw my way back up from the water. But now, it reminds me, I survived.